Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered Call-In Show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest Scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. Hey, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing today? Hey, if you don't know me, this is Devon Morris. I talk about Scrum, Agile, all that entrepreneur stuff. Just if you got questions, you come and talk to me, right? So, tonight, the conversation is going to be about, let me show you. It's going to be about mastering the business analyst interview. At least the Agile Business Analyst interview is what we're talking about, right? But before we go there, though, let's have a little conversation about how this thing works, right? So, I'm here up until we get to the end of the hour to answer any questions that you have. But usually about 5 minutes after we get started, we actually start talking about a topic, and we'll talk about that business analyst topic. We normally go with that topic for 20, maybe 30 minutes. Hopefully by 8:30 I'll be done. But tonight, I got a lot of information. So I might go past 8:30, so you got to bear with me. But as soon as we're done with that, then we'll open it for questions. And this is where you can jump on live, right? So you can join me live. We can have a conversation back and forth and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. But I will also answer your questions in the comments, right? So do me a favor, everybody. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. Just say hi. Whether you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're actually, out on YouTube, just come on in and say hi to me, right? I'll do some shout outs later, right? That's what I'll do later. I'm just double checking to see where my LinkedIn folks are at, and I will make sure that I open that up. Before you LinkedIn folks, guess what? I don't really answer many questions over there, so you might as well come on over to YouTube and join us, right? If you got time, just come on and join me over there. All right, so before we get started, y'all, what's been going on this week? Man, I almost died this past weekend, man. Not died literally, but I'm literally talking about I had a 30-page paper due in terms of that PhD program. It was ridiculous, right? I stayed up all night Saturday night so I could make time for Mother's Day, all that kind of stuff, and then nobody wanted to do anything with me, but that's okay. I was depressed, but I went to sleep anyway, so it was no big deal, right? But outside of that, everything else was good, man. This week it started out amazing. Working with a client as usual, so I'm crushing things there. I got a topic I'm going to talk about in the future that I think you all need to be aware of. Fusion teams. Remember that, right? So I think I want to talk to you all about that, right? A concept that you may want to get into. Maybe not. Maybe you want to catch up with me. So if you all don't know, I'm a certified Scrum trainer. Do enterprise coaching, board certified coach, all those kind of things, right? In school for a PhD. So I stay busy on stuff, right? What else is going on this week? Actually, I got a 2-week break from school. That's the biggest thing going on, right? So I'm just like super happy, right? I'm super happy because, man, school killed me this time. This term, it was just crush. Because I'm spending like 40 to 60 hours in school. Like, literally. It's ridiculous. And working full time and doing training. It's crazy. But you know what, though? I'm amazing. That's what it's all about. And since I'm amazing, that's how it works, right? Anyway, go ahead and say hi to me, y'all. You know that we record this, so you're always welcome to come back to it because a lot of people, they don't show up on tonight. And they'll just show up sometime this week and just kind of go through it. So just come on and join us and see what we're talking about. All right, so we got a good topic tonight. I think I'm going to go ahead and get us going on that topic because we got a lot of little stuff to talk about, right? And so last week we started talking about business analysts, at least the Agile Business Analyst, right? And in talking about the Agile Business Analyst, I want to move on and talk about interviewing as an Agile Business Analyst, right? And then you can at least have some tips and some ways you can go about that, right? I love business analysts. I never have officially been a business analyst. Not officially, right? Have I written requirements? Absolutely, right? But have I been a business? No, I have not been a business analyst. But I've done all the kinds. I've been a developer. Obviously I played every single role on the Scrum team. But I haven't officially been a business analyst. But have I done business analyst work? I have, man. What are you talking about? I have. But let's go ahead and jump in this topic because the topic is important for us to jump into, right? So let's start talking about this. Let me go ahead and jump into some slides like I've done in the past times, right? So this is about mastering the Agile Business Analyst interview. That's what the focus is here. Now, first thing to talk about is something just really very simple. You know me, you know my credentials. I'm just shining them on the screen. I've been at a lot of different companies. Nothing special, right? Nothing special. And I'm gonna keep going to companies. I go to companies all the time. Every year I at least jump into one company to do something major that I really, really desire to do, right? But let's talk about first understanding the role of a business analyst, right? Nothing crazy. You all know the role to some degree if you've been around for any amount of time in terms of, the agile space, right? If I think about the key responsibilities of a business analyst, probably the biggest one is going to be around requirements. Now, I'm going to say to you, creating user stories here, but you all know if there's anything about a business analyst in a non-agile world, it would be highly associated with requirements, extremely, right? And so in our world, obviously, is going to be associated with the type of requirements that Agile is kind of associated with, and that would be user stories and acceptance criteria. So nothing really is surprising about that. Continuing this though, right? You might find that business analysts are managing the product backlog, and they might be collaborating with the product owner. And when I say collaborating with the product owner, just working with them in general. A lot of organizations that I run into, they have product owners who don't have time, who literally do not have the time. And if they do not have the time, then guess what? They need somebody to kind of pinch hit for them, right? And I have a situation right now with a client where I think I'm going to run into some product owners that don't have much time. And I'm probably going to have to use business analysts to bolster them up to some degree. Yeah, that's what's going to likely happen, right? And sometimes you can't really get around it just because of whatever the constraints within the organization. But it doesn't stop there, right? Business analysts are going to be working with stakeholders, facilitating communication is what you're going to see. And then another big thing that business analysts always do is they find ways to support sprint planning, the reviews, the retrospectives. Have I seen them in daily scrums? Yes. In today's world, would I say a business analyst should be jumping in a daily scrum? Not really, right? We kind of, at least in today's world, we think of the daily scrum as being only associated with developers. And if it's only, what is a developer for those that have not been around? A developer is anyone that's working on any aspect of building whatever we're trying to build. That's what they are, right? And so a business analyst is classically not working on building whatever we're trying to build. But let's say software real quick so we understand, because sometimes business analysts do testing. So if you're actually testing, you're probably doing a part of what it takes to build whatever we're trying to build. So if that's the case, you might need to be involved in those daily scrums, right? So you just got to debate on what it's going to be, right? And what it's going to be is what it's going to be. Let's keep talking, right? So what are some of the key competencies when it actually comes to a business analyst? Nothing crazy, but you all know some of these things, so I want to highlight them in a much larger scale here. The first thing on that list is going to be make sure that you have some Agile expertise. If you're going to be an Agile business analyst, you need to have the expertise that go along with it. Now, here's the deal. Understanding the framework. Scrum got to be top of the list, right? Kanban is another one that has to be toward the top of the list. The scaled Agile framework has to be at top of the list, right? I mention those because these are the three most popular ones that a business analyst should be concerned about. Now, should a BA be concerned about extreme programming? I would say definitely yes. If you're involved in software development, for sure, I would say they would need to be involved. It's just a part of what you need to do. But will they be involved from a doing it perspective or teaching people? Probably not. But the idea is that if you roll with Scrum, you roll with Kanban, and you roll with SAFe, the Scaled Agile framework, you probably got most of the things covered that you need to cover. If you're jumping into DevOps, then probably you need to jump a little bit deeper, learn about some of those practices associated with extreme programming, and you'll be good to go at that point. Now, BAs just need to understand the elements of the framework, the elements of each one of those frameworks. And if they do that, they will be in an amazing position at that particular point. But it doesn't stop there because their expertise goes a little bit deeper than that. They got to have business analyst skills, right? Any business analyst, especially if you're working in an agile world, needs to really understand the traditional business analysis concepts, right? Stakeholder analysis, requirements, eliciting those requirements specifically, and process mapping, right? These are basic skills that most business analysts can do a big amount of work, right? Because a lot of times business analysts are working with the business and they're working with IT and they're bridging the gap. They're bridging the gap, right? And if they're bridging the gap, they got to have a little bit of all that stuff involved and that they're dealing with because they got to be able to translate things, right? And so having these skills are very classic, but they're traditional to the business analyst role. Now, it doesn't stop there because another skill is technical proficiency. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be a software developer per se. That's not what I'm saying at all, because software development is just not where it's at for you, right? But do you need to understand tools like Jira, those typical agile tools, Trello, Confluence, maybe Azure, Azure DevOps, right? Salesforce, whatever the tools are, just any agile tool in general you might want to become familiar with, right? Because that's likely where people are going to want you to put the requirements. There are other requirements management tools, but from an agile perspective, the agile tools will be the ones that you deal with. Now, what about soft skills? Communication, negotiation, conflict resolution are going to be essential, right? You got to make sure people are moving forward in the same direction that you're going, and that's critical for you to do. If you don't have the ability to do that, you're just gonna be crash landing a whole lot. And if you're crash landing a whole lot, man, your life is gonna suck, man. I wouldn't want a life that sucks if I'm you. So it's best that you have these kind of skills because if you don't have them, life is gonna suck, man. And you don't want life to suck. You want what you do. Well, maybe you don't do a good job, man. It don't matter to me. Um, but it probably will matter to your pocketbooks, right? So I would advise you just get some good skills at least soft skills, so that you can do a better job at doing this, right? Now here we go. We don't stop there, right? Because one of the biggest things I want to talk about during at least our time here is preparing for that interview, right? Most of you all get what a business analyst is. Most of you all know what a business analyst does, but it's critical for you to be able to prepare for that interview. So let's really spend some time on this, and then you're good to go. First thing is make sure you understand the company. There's a reason why I say this, and you know, a lot of us expect business analysts to be analytical, for business analysts to be prepared, for them to be ready to go, right? And if I was hiring a business analyst, I would expect them to have researched us as a company. I would expect them to understand the industry that we're in, maybe some of the challenges involved with that industry, right? Because business analysts research. They go and do things to figure out how things are going to work for us in the future. It's not easy doing a process map or going through all the places you need to go internally in order to understand how things connect. That's a really good skill. But if you can't tell me what my company does, you already got a problem, right? So make sure that you understand that and make sure that you take a real deep look at the job description. Look at the skills that they're asking for, the experience that's required. The reason why I say this to you is because every business analyst job, every job rec is extremely different based on really how they want you to bridge the gap. And so, but you'll be able to read in that job description how they truly want you to bridge the gap. So just make sure you study that and you understand that in depth, because if you do, you're going to put yourself in a better position. That will just prepare you to answer the right questions that you need to answer. So nothing crazy here, right? Just something you should be prepared to do in almost any situation, right? This applies to any time you are searching for a job. Now, we don't stop there. The next thing that I think you should be aware of is those agile business analysis concepts, right? Let's just start off with a simple stuff, right? The agile ceremonies, right? What are they, right? When I say the agile ceremonies, like most people are basically saying Scrum, right? That's what they're saying, right? So when people talk agile ceremonies, they're really saying Scrum, but you know that already, right? If you don't, you got some bigger problems, right? So the agile ceremonies, when I say agile ceremonies, I'm saying these scrum events. I'm saying the scrum rituals. I'm saying the scrum meetings. That's what I'm saying. So when you hear ceremonies, I'm really talking about meetings, events, or rituals is what I mean, right? All those words are kind of words that's been used over the years to describe them, but they're pretty much the scrum events, right? And so when you talk about that, you're talking about the sprint planning, you're talking about the daily scrums, the sprint reviews, and sprint retrospectives, right? You should understand those things, understand the timing associated with those things. What's the inputs? What's the outputs? Because I've seen a few business analysts that had to facilitate them, right? I really have, right? Um, I've always found business analysts to be good servant leaders, right? So I think that's an amazing thing for you to understand. What about user stories, right? That's the preferred requirements that people utilize. You should know the structure of a user story. You should know the format of a user story. You should know all about acceptance criteria, right? If you don't know that, that's a whole problem. That's just a whole problem, right? User story from the perspective of the user, right? Um, you should understand what an epic is, the connection between an epic and a user story. Maybe even a feature per se, right? Because a lot of organizations utilize features. Sometimes features are the same as epics. Sometimes features break down into epics. Sometimes epics break down into features. And different tools do different things, right? So there's no standards to that. But you should clearly understand that. If you don't, it's going to be a bigger problem for you, right? Because that's going to be easy get you the hell up out of here type deal, right? Now, make sure that you are very clear on the skill that you need to have, and that is the business analysis, right? Um, Impact mapping, user journey mapping, right? Moscow. Do you know what Moscow is? I mean, I'm gonna just ask, right? What is Moscow, people? Tell me. Y'all drop it in the comments, right? What is Moscow? What are some other prioritization techniques that you all know beyond Moscow, right? What is a user journey map, right? Drop it in the comments, right? Help some people out here. Maybe a user story map. You should know how to use that kind of technique, right? All these techniques are really simple, amazing, and good, and they should be things that you're used to doing, right? I mean, literally, walking in with a client, in the past few weeks, I've had to do a story map, period, right? I've had to do a story writing session, right? And then, minimum train people up on how to do it, make sure people are ready to go with it, right? And then you should be ready to facilitate that and keep it moving. That should be all on you. If you can't do that, you got bigger problems. And I mean, do it where it's effective. It's one thing to just be writing things for the sake of writing things, but just writing things for the sake of writing things means you're wasting everybody's time. So don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Do it to get a whole lot of value. Okay. So really, really important. Now, it doesn't just stop there, right? It doesn't just stop there because the next thing you need to be able to do, especially if you have some experience, okay, this is really important. Now, look, there's going to be some of you all that don't have a lot of experience. I get it. But the experience that you do have, use it to your advantage. Use it to your advantage, okay? Please do. Now, when I say that, you need to think about some very specific examples where you've applied your skills in agile projects. This is critical. It's crucial, right? Your skills in agile projects. What am I saying? You have business analyst skills. You should be applying those business analyst skills in the agile landscape. If you are doing that, you should be able to reflect on what those experiences were. How did it work out for you? What did you do? Do you get where I'm coming from? So again, it's the same skill sets that you would have traditionally. You're just applying them a little bit differently, right? You may be applying them a little bit of everything all the time instead of chunks of it all in one burst, right? So it's just going to be different in terms of your application, but it remains the same. It's really no different, okay? So it's really important for you to be able to reflect on that past and pull that out so you can talk about it. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I talked to you about the STAR method. I didn't make an example this time for this, but use the STAR method. The STAR method is, come up with a situation. What was the assigned task in that situation? What is the action you took and what was the result? You know, probably the biggest chunk of that, I'm gonna say 60, maybe 70% of that, it should be around the action. Is in terms of what you did, what actions did you take, right? But I think the STAR method is a good way to structure your responses. I really do. If you utilize that, that will give a very logical, where nobody gets lost within your situation or within your explanation. And then be ready to discuss challenges that you faced and how you overcame them. How you overcame them is really the big deal, because overcoming the challenges is the magic. That's the beauty. The beauty is within that. Okay. So make sure that you position yourself so then you can reflect on the past. Reflecting on the past, those past projects are extremely important. For you all that don't have no experience on agile projects, but you still have business analyst skills, you can find ways to talk about how you did things in maybe a more iterative, incremental way, right? It wasn't necessarily an agile project, but you did you applied some agility to it, right? Especially when an emergency came up or something like that. You know, it's times when you probably would jump into those kind of skills. So it doesn't mean that you had to have been on an agile project, but having those business analyst skills, that is what I want you to have some past experience with. That's what's really, really important here. Okay. But it doesn't stop there, right? Let's continue. What about the agile frameworks? A lot of times what people will start doing is asking you questions. And here's the deal. You got to start preparing yourself to answer some of these questions. So, hey, what about questions about the agile framework and concepts? Well, here's a question for you. Can you explain the manifesto and its core principles? Can you do that? Do you understand the values? There's 4 values, there's 12 principles. If you can't understand, you should at least have the 4 values down. Legitimately. You should at least have the 4 values down. If you got the 4 values down, that's pretty good, right? But take it a little bit further than that, right? If you get the 4 values down, I'm not saying understand every single principle, but at least have 3 favorite ones. At least have 3 favorite ones and roughly know what they are. Roughly know what they are, right? Um, using software as a measure of progress. Yeah, yeah. Understand what they are. So then you can explain them and get something to them. I don't think anybody's gonna ask you for all 12 of them, right? But if you know 3 of them, 3 solid ones that you can talk to, not perfectly, not like the exact wording, I think you'll pass that with no problems. Think about another question here. How do you prioritize a product backlog in an agile environment? How do you do that? How do you do that? What kind of technique would you utilize to do that? Completely up to you, right? Can you explain the differences between Scrum, Kanban, and SAFe? Can you do that, right? If I was to take one question here, and I was looking at one question, how do you prioritize in an agile environment? Do you have the answer to that? Like, I'm talking to you all right here that's on a live. Could you answer that today? Right? Just think about it. How do you prioritize in an agile environment? How do you do that? You know, let me ask you all. Throw a technique out there, right? I can easily say, I can think value and effort. Value and effort would give me a quadrant, right? And with that quadrant, I can figure out what is high effort, low value, or maybe high value, low effort, and those go higher versus other ones, right? It is, kind of brute way of doing things. I don't get to a place say this one is better than that one, but I can start to group them in a way where I can start to point toward where the value is at and start to prioritize that product backlog. And then I may have to do some absolute ranking at that point. But you need to be able to answer that question, right? In a reasonable way. In a reasonable way. If I go on to the next set, because there's more questions to be asked, right? Because there's lots of questions that people have in these situations. What about business analysis technique questions, right? How do you ensure that requirements meet the need of all stakeholders? Can you describe a time when you use a specific business analysis tool or technique to solve a problem? How do you facilitate effective user story writing session as a business analyst? So if I go ahead and just circle one right here, let me circle this bottom one. How do you facilitate an effective story writing session, right? You tell me, what is a technique you would utilize? How do you deal with that? What is your preparation, right? Because it's just not only facilitating, because facilitation means you're, in many times, a neutral party. That means you're trying to elicit them to, or you're trying to get them to achieve a certain goal, a certain place. That's important. That could be helpful for you. So it's just one of those things where I'm just like, okay, it's something to talk about. But if you can't answer these three questions, you should work on that. You should work on that, right? Because I got an answer for each one of these. But what is your answer is the question, right? Let's move on to another grouping of questions, and that is behavioral questions, right? Behavioral questions are going to be important, right? Tell me about a challenging stakeholder that you worked with and how you managed the relationship. How have you adapted your approach when the project needed to pivot? Give an example of a complex problem you solved. What was your approach and what was the result? Again, pick one of these. It doesn't matter. A lot of us have had a difficult stakeholder or somebody that was hard to work with. If you never had a difficult stakeholder, think about somebody difficult to work with, period. Make up somebody if you got to. You had a difficult friend, for all I know. Find a reason, right? And practice that. Understand how you would answer that, because they may ask you a very similar question, right? And you don't want to look stupid. You don't want to look like you don't have an answer. You should absolutely have an answer, okay? Now, again, some of you all may not have some experience, but you can still practice these things, and you can find challenges that were challenges in other ways, right? So, really, really, really important. Really, really important step to kind of move forward with, right? Let's see. Let's talk about this a little bit more. What about anticipating scenario-based questions? There's no, I've had a lot of situations where people are, kind of jumping out there with some scenarios. This is another big one to be prepared about, right? Imagine the product owner changes the priority of a feature mid-sprint. How would you handle the situation? I can think about that from many circumstances. I really can. Imagine you're in the middle of the sprint and a key stakeholder introduces a new requirement that could impact the current sprint goals, right? How would you handle this situation? You have multiple high priority features to implement with limited resources. How would you decide which features to prioritize? That's the question. If I was to go ahead and circle this middle one, you should be able to come up with a single answer for this, right? That gets at it. Maybe using the STAR method to explain it. So really, really, really very important. So you can take a step and move in that right direction. So you got to think about how you would answer these questions. And if you don't have an answer, you should practice. Practice with friends, practice with family, right? Record yourself. See if you get yourself a good, reflect on it, right? All these things are important. What about demonstrating soft skills? They're gonna ask you questions related to your soft skills, right? Because it's hard to demonstrate them while you're there. I mean, you can demonstrate them in how you have a conversation, but you want to highlight instances where you successfully manage stakeholder expectations, resolve conflicts, and led the team collaboration efforts. So, good question. How do you handle conflicts within a team? So, if a developer and a tester are super angry at each other, what do you do with that, right? Can you describe a situation where you had to adapt to a significant change? Oh, the product owner just came and said, we need to move in a completely different direction. They want to cancel the sprint. How do you deal with that, right? Because some market thing changed. How do you ensure effective communication with stakeholders who are not familiar with the agile practices? How would you do that, right? I have language that I use that don't speak Scrum at all, that don't speak Agile at all. So, and then I can communicate with them. And it's just ways that you can do it. No real problems, nothing really major on that. It's just you take those steps in that right direction. So, nothing crazy. You just step forward. Okay, you just step forward with it, right? And so I think that these are a list of questions that you can start preparing yourself to kind of move forward with that business analyst role. Y'all, time check is almost 8:30, but I'm not done. I got a couple more things to go through here, so just know that, right? So I may be 5 more minutes here, 5 more minutes, right? So after the show, after the interview, I should say, after the interview, what should you do? Man, I'm gonna go old school here, right? Because I think old school still works. I'm gonna go old school here just a bit. So just stick with me for a second, right? So after the interview, I think you should send a, a thoughtful thank you email. Now, I would say no to letter back in the day, but it's an email likely in today's world, right? Expressing your gratitude for the opportunity. Make sure you let them know that you're interested, right? Summarize how your skills align with the company's needs, right? You want to do that. That's the way you kind of get in a little bit more, right? They'll appreciate it. Trust me. Plan for any follow up actions. Like they may they may be deciding on a second interview for you, right? What do you need to do to prepare for that, right? They may have already scheduled it if you're really that good, right? And then told you some of the people that you're going to run into, right? How do you prepare for that, right? How do you prepare for that level of person that you're going to be interviewing with, right? Reflect on what questions you've answered and where you might have stumbled. This is really important because if you know the goods and the bads, it's going to help make it better the next time. And then just make sure you stay positive and keep your options open. Like understand that this ain't the only job on the planet. You may not get the job and it has nothing to do with you. It may be the company just you're just not a good fit for them, right? And a good fit may not be with your skills, maybe your personality wasn't right for them, whatever it is. They could have many reasons for not hiring you, right? Even though you got all the right skills, you may have been you may have been the best person to choose, but then you had a situation where they just found somebody who fit better, right? And that happens, right? Nothing really surprising about that. But there's just things you need to do. So post interview, take care of them, take care of yourself. Okay. And then I got one more thing here. One more thing here. And I need you to really, really pay close attention to this, right? And that one more thing is to prepare your success stories. Understand your success stories, right? Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, my success stories are associated with return on investment. Period. They're in my head, right? I know exactly what I want to say when I introduce myself. So I can just drop the mic. You understand? I know exactly when I'm in an interview, what kind of situations that they come up, something that aligns with it, right? And so find your stories. If you know your stories prior to going in, you have a series of them that you got that that's available for you to provide. Then you can adjust that story and adapt that story accordingly. Guess what they can't do? They can't fact check you. They can't fact check your story, right? They really can't, right? Most companies won't let them talk about the details of your employment. So, I'm not saying lie, but I am saying the story can have some fabulous elements to it. So prepare, right? And so realistically, as I think about that, right, stakeholder engagement, understand something. How were you successful with that? Because stakeholder engagement is going to be huge, huge, huge for a business analyst. Explain how you have worked with stakeholders to gather requirements and prioritize needs. Big, big part of the JLB, right? What about problem solving? Big, big part of the JLB. Highlight situations where you resolve ambiguities and conflicts between the business needs and the technical constraints. That's a big part because that's where the gap is at right there. So that gap analysis is a big part of what business analysts do. And then the agile practices, right? Discuss your involvement in sprint planning, retros, refinement, especially product backlog refinement. We don't say grooming anymore, but product backlog refinement. How did you get yourself involved in that? You'll likely be involved in sprint reviews as well. So how was you involved in sprint reviews? So really, really important. So if you think about your success stories and you work on your success stories, you put yourself in a position where you probably can be amazing. You probably can get some amazing responses, right? But that goes back to preparation. The more you prepare for that, the better off you'll be. Does that make sense, everybody? Hopefully that's helpful. And I think that's it for us, right? I think that's about it. So here's the deal. Let's close that out. Next week, we're going to talk about overcoming scope challenges in Scrum. Overcoming scope challenges in Scrum. That will be our next topic. I had somebody ask me this question, I think last show, and I had somebody ask me a question about scope today. So it's just one of those things where our next topic is going to be overcoming scope challenges. And I think that will be our last one for May because we got the holiday coming and do Monday holidays, right? So we'd be sitting in a nice position at that point. So I'm pretty good. That turned out pretty well. But interviewing as a business analyst, I think a lot of these tips that we talked about in terms of business analysts could apply to any other role. Any other role. You just have to make some adjustments, right? Because there's some role specific stuff, right? So that being said, I think that's it for that topic. I think we're good to go on that topic. Now, what I want to do is I want to open up the floor for whatever questions that you all may have. This is where you can join me on a show live if you want to. If you want me to join me on a show, then there's a link I need to provide you. I'm going to copy that link. I'm going to drop it in the chat here so then you can have it. So I'll drop it there, and then I'll go ahead and go on to LinkedIn and drop it there too to make sure we're good to go. Just get it in both places. We do that, we'll be pretty solid. I may not be able to I didn't bring the show up on LinkedIn, so I may not be able to get you all on LinkedIn because I kind of messed up things a little bit. But I'm jumping over there real quick to see what I can do. If I can do it, then great. If I can't, then I'm sorry. I really am sorry. Okay. Yeah, I don't see why I need to jump. Let's go here. Yeah, there we go. Let's go there. So I'll drop it here. Let's see. So I dropped you all the link over on LinkedIn as well, so we're good to go. I got to make sure I stop that because it's actually talking to me, and I don't need to be talking to me while I'm on the phone, while I'm on here with y'all. So what kind of questions do you all have? Before we jump into questions, let me give shout outs to some of the people that are here at this time. So let's see. Patrick, as usual, brother, how you doing? I'm doing well. I'm just doing well, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm just doing well. You know, I got little bugs trying to get me. Rajiv, how you doing, brother? Let's see. I got D. How you doing, D? How's it going? Then I got Jamila. How you doing, Jamila? I got Miss White here as usual. She actually threw in WSJF. Tell us what that means. Tell us what that means, Miss White. WSJF. Tell us what that means, so we all know. Here you go and throwing out secrets. Tell us what that means. All right. So again, if you want to enjoy the show, that's the link to the show. Just come on in and have yourself a little drink and come and enjoy us, right? We're always doing things like we should. Let's see. Ms. White says to me, sounds like the BA you have explained here sounds like a mixture of product owner and product manager. Yes, it is. They have some product owner and product manager skills in them, right? For sure, right? Because I'm talking about the business analyst, because realistically, in a Scrum world, right? In a Scrum world, do we need a business analyst in a Scrum world? If you got a product owner that's doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, and the developers are doing everything they're supposed to be doing, you don't really need a business analyst, right? You don't, because the product owner's doing that stuff. But if you need a business analyst, you're going to have somebody who can jump and do some of that product owner's kind of work. It's just a fact, not just a BA. I gather requirements and talk to the business, but they're going to have to do some of that work. So you are a lightweight product owner, proxy product owner, right? Is what I see the business analyst as, right? Weighted shortest job first, just for everybody. I knew what you meant. I did. I just want you to say it. So I agree. The business analyst I described from an agile perspective is exactly that. Is a mixture of product owner and product manager. Yes, absolutely. 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 It's like taking it to the extreme level, as far down that path to go, even to the place where I said they should be ready to deal with stakeholders as far as customers and users. Just all the way there, right? Because realistically, for me, if I don't have a product owner, or if I don't have an engaged product owner, the business analyst is my version of a product owner. Like almost every team I've been on, if I had a business analyst like I just described to you, it is normally a function, or the other side of that is that the product owner's not that great, or they don't have the time, or they're just not there. And so I find that the business analyst ends up being the person that the devs are working the closest with to get things out the door, and that's more like the person that they have to be. So literally, when I say proxy product owner, that's more what they're like literally. It's just the truth, right? It's just the truth. The other side of that could very well be if you really have developers that need a bunch of technical stuff written, that's when they become heavy usage too. The BA, the business analyst, the agile, they get super heavy usage then because the product owner typically can't convert that stuff into that kind of language. So that's another place where they get really super heavy, right? So, it is a role, literally, what I'm saying to you, they cross a lot of boundaries for real. But it's just truth, man. It's just truth because you obviously don't have the skill. And you need that skill to kind of be there to some degree, right? So this is what it is, just that truth, right? All right, so that being said, what's going on, Anthony? How you doing there, brother? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're doing well. But Miss White, I agree with you on that completely. When I say completely, I mean completely. I agree, right? I agree completely. But it just is what it is, right? Nothing surprising to me. And for most of you all, what I just described is not surprising to you either. It's not surprising to you at all. I got something bothering my knee. So yeah, so it's not surprising to you at all, right? But it's definitely not surprising to me. All right, so that being said, what kind of questions do you have? Drop those questions in the comments or you're welcome to join me. You're welcome to join me. This is a good topic. I enjoyed this topic. I enjoyed this topic because I feel like I neglect business analysts. I definitely be neglecting them inside the jobs. But then when you don't get what you need from the organization, I'll be like, give me a business analyst, please. Please give me a BA. Please. I need a BA. Baby, please. Give me a BA. That's what I say. Baby, please. You know, I'll tell you, man, the best business analyst that I ever had turned into a scrum master. And she would cook she would cook the team breakfast, waffles, every sprint planning. She'd bring a waffle iron in and they would have breakfast every sprint planning. And she would cook it for them. I'm not lying. Like, I'm not joking you. I'm serious, man. And I never did get a waffle though. But that's every sprint planning you'd have waffles. Like I'd never seen that before. But I know it's true. Well, I know I never did it, right? I just don't have that kind of thing in me. I love it, man. I love it. All right, so what kind of questions do you all have? Drop it in the comments. You know how this thing goes. I was having fun with that. So let me make sure I look at this calendar real quick, just make sure I'm not telling you any lies. Next week, we're gonna have the overcoming. We're gonna have the overcoming scope challenges in Scrum. I figured that was appropriate after this one. And then the 27th, no go. 27th is Memorial Day. We're not gonna have a show on that day. So after next week, our next show. After next week, our next show will be on June 3rd. On June 3rd. Yeah. So it should be fun. Oh, that's a busy weekend. Graduation, marriages, all that kind of stuff is that weekend. Woo! It's gonna be a busy one for me. But I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm built for it. I'm built for it. You don't know nothing about that. All right, y'all. So what kind of questions do you have? If you ain't got no questions, I understand. We can wrap it up at some point. You know. Anybody here going to the Scrum gathering? Scrum gathering in a couple weeks. Anybody going? If you are, let me know because I'm gonna stop by there. Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you on requesting the BA when there's a disconnect on transparency from the product owner. Anthony, let me tell you something. If there's any kind of disconnect with the product owner, I don't care what it is, I'm probably going for a BA. So just not transparency with me, man. Oh, that product owner got an attitude. Where the BA at? Where the BA at? I mean, the BA just nicer. The BA just nicer. So that's what that's how I be thinking about it. For real. So I agree with you completely, Anthony. Like for real. You get 100, you get 1,000% agreement from me. So nothing but goodness, nothing but greatness. I was just like, wow. But it's just interesting, y'all. I'm telling you, it's just interesting. But like I say, business analysts have always been a game saver for me. Yeah, I really can tell you that's the truth, right? Really have. And I'm gonna have a business analyst right now that literally is gonna be a game saver for me. The client I'm at right now, they're gonna be a game saver. Like I'm being real honest with you. They're gonna help out tremendously, and I just got to make sure that they get rewarded for it ultimately. You know, but I see it coming down the pipe. And it doesn't surprise me because it happens all the time. It's like nothing new about it. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But I love it. All right, y'all. Well, if that's it, y'all, ain't no real questions. There don't look like any questions. Maybe I did a really good job on that topic. Maybe I did a great job on that topic, and there's no more. No, I just dropped the mic on the topic. I could have did that, which I don't mind. I had to do that to y'all sometimes, right? Make y'all, make y'all feel like I got something to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Here go Patrick. I think Patrick's doing me lobs because I know Patrick knows the answers to these questions, right? Um, how best do you handle interruptions by the product owner or sponsor in the middle of a sprint? Um, so for me, the first thing I do is just have a one-off conversation with them. Um, I literally have a one-off conversation with them, right? That one-off conversation will be, heavily on an interruption, heavily about OJT on a job training, heavily about helping them um, get an understanding of what this thing is that we're doing, right? Um, you know, the bigger question becomes is does it have an impact on the sprint goal? It may not have an impact on the sprint goal, but if it does have an impact on the sprint goal, is this impact great enough for us to cancel the sprint? Does this impact happen at the very beginning of the sprint, or this interruption at the very beginning, or in the middle, toward the end? Is it going to mess up what we're doing? There's a lot of little things that come into play. Um, could this be this kind of change that really is a huge change that needs to go in? It could be, but most of the time it's not that, right? 99% of the time it's not an emergency. 99% of the time it's not anything drastic that couldn't wait until the next sprint. And so I have a conversation. That's where I start at. Start with a conversation. I don't want to assume the worst. And so I start a conversation just because I don't want to assume the worst. Um, and that's always gotten me uh, some favor. I try my best to be as positive as possible whenever I'm working with clients, right? That everything's an opportunity. And it's more naturally the way that I am. And so then I try to find a way here to be as positive as possible and really just have that one-off conversation with them. I think that one-off conversation with them will tell me something. They will either kind of align with us to some degree, or they just might be the super rebellious person that just don't really care. And then I have different concerns at that point because this might be that product owner that doesn't care about putting the team on a death march. When I say death march, I'm talking about locking the triple constraint, scope, time, cost, right? And the real cost I'm talking about is the resources, more than buying servers and stuff like that. So then I'm a little concerned if it's that kind of product owner because I know I got a little bit more fighting to do because they're going to do things that's unnatural to the team to make the team work as hard as possible, and that could lead to burnout. That could lead to where they're trying to control the team, which could remove some levels of autonomy. Once you start moving levels of autonomy, then you are removing levels of psychological safety. Um, and once you start losing those kind of things, you run into bigger issues. And so it's just one of those things where it starts off with a conversation with me, and then I take that and move forward however we need to move forward so that I can help them make the best decision on how they will behave moving forward. So that's how I started off without making, again, any negative assumptions, right? It could be they just didn't know any better. That could be it. I don't know, but I'm going to find out through that conversation, right? Um, Now, the other aspect of it is, you know, sometimes product owners have a role that is such a big role in the organization that it's hard to stop them because they got the backing of other people. Um, yeah, that might become real frustrating because we might be sacrificing a lot of the things that we're naturally doing Scrum the right way, just to kind of appease them and satisfy them because of whatever political position that they have. Then that puts me in a position where I have to start to let me see what you say here. Shield the team. Yep. Then I have to start shielding the team at that point, right? Um, and I don't want to shield the team per se, but that's my last resort is to shield them, right? If I start shielding them, well, that's my next to last resort. My last resort is escalation after I've shielded them. So to me, there's steps to it, but the first step starts off with having a conversation. And if that doesn't work and they're still doing it, then it's protecting the team. If that doesn't work, then I have to escalate and start dealing with it a different way. So I just take those logical steps in the right direction. Okay. All right, Patrick. So good question, Patrick. Good question. Other questions, y'all. Other questions. Yeah, man. I had a nice bite on me, man. Something bit me. I'm like, this is crazy. Just bit me. I don't know why it wants to bite me. You know, I'm waiting for y'all. I'm waiting for these cicadas. I'm in the Midwest right now. I'm waiting for these cicadas, right? I'm looking forward to it. They say it's gonna be like a double brood, and I want to see it. I want to see if it's gonna be like the Bible, where there's a bunch of locusts. That's what I want to see. I want to see if it's so many cicadas that they block the sun. That's what I want to see. If I see them block the sun, I'm getting in my truck. I'm out of here. I'm gonna be running cicadas over in my truck, right? And I won't stop until I need to run out of gas, and I God get some gas from my suit, and then go get some gas, and then I get back in the truck and be gone. Wouldn't sleep, get myself all the way back home. That's crazy, but I'm looking forward to it. I have to go help my aunt do things and prepare for the cicadas, all kinds of stuff. It's just like crazy. Just let nature do its thing. Anyway, all right, y'all. That's been a pleasure. Any other questions? Any other comments? Throw them in the chat. I really care about y'all. I really appreciate it. Just remember that next week we will be talking about overcoming Scrum scope challenges in Scrum. That's going to be our big topic next week. On that note, I'm going to say to you all, I really appreciate your time. This has been an amazing thing. You hear that they're noisy? Yeah, yeah. I hear it's going to be very noisy. Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen them as an adult. I saw them as a kid, and when I was an adult, I just haven't been in Chicago. And now since I'm in Chicago, I'm in Chicago for a double brood, right? The 13 year and 7 year, whatever it is. But this happens once every 40 some years. So I'm like every 35 years, I think. Yeah, every 35 years, whatever it is, right? I don't know. But I'm looking forward to this one because I'm expecting to be really loud. I want to see them be really loud, right? Um, so it should be fun. It should be fun. So we'll see. Yeah, yeah, Patrick, it's all good, man. You are so welcome. And everybody here, I really appreciate everybody that shows up. We will continue this. Next week should be fun, talking about scope challenges in Scrum and how to handle them, basically. We'll talk about that next week. On that note, I'm going to say I really appreciate y'all time. Thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, and we will continue this journey. You need something, reach out to me. Other than that, I'm going to say peace to you. Have an amazing week. Bye bye, everybody.